So I've come up with my what I'm calling second generation of the Scalar idea generator, and all it is basically a way of thinking of how I use Scalar and kind of a system of how I stack and layer all the possibilities, and so that when it's done, I can save out the project, and at any time I can open up any one of a phrase library or something like the orchestra, or anything else, an ostinato string library, even something like something out of the arcs. And any of these VSTs that have multiple, in some cases hundreds or thousands of different ideas in them alone, once the basics are put together, if I just move these out of the way, this system of layers with knowing what all the chords are and writing that down in the chord track, and also utilizing ideas from Band in the Box. So if I call that up, you can see that I also just threw the chords in there. So now everything, all the hundreds or thousands of session player type recordings from Band in the Box can also be used. So the idea is to create a system where you can come up with chords, your own chords or what have you, pull something from Scalar or any other system, and just quickly, just by clicking the mouse, come up with thousands and thousands and thousands of variations just as fast as you can click through them. So coming up next, we're going to listen to this, and then I'm going to show you how I put together, and I'm going to demonstrate a whole new 8-bar chord system and go through it piece by piece. All right, so the idea starts with what I'm calling sustains, but the idea is kind of a drony sustain type of sound. A little bit of choir, just kind of a background, a basis for what comes next. And then since that's looping, then I can add in at any time some strings. And those strings can be more detailed or not, depending. But for now, let's keep just the bass going. So we got the bass phrase in the background going. So for now, that's good. And then let's add a little bit of ostinato action. So we got a little bit of rhythm now going on with the ostinato strings, and that can be changed up at any time. So many variations, but again, for now, let's just keep some high strings, a little bit of movement, and then let's add just a little bit of ostinato woodwind. And then for the next bit, we're gonna add in our main detailed strings, which is the VSL, and I'm going to turn that on. And that's going to be playing kind of a melody, a more specific string structure. And I was able to go in there and add some detail to the velocities. And any time we could change this up. So many variations there. So now we got a little bit of a melody going. Adding in some detail woodwinds. And the details coming from some phrases this time. Very specific detail on the woodwinds now. And now it's time to hit some brass, get some fullness. You can hear the big horns in the background. And same thing with these can be changed to however you like them. Faster, slow, strong, or quiet. And now we're going to add some percussion. Some lighter pitched percussion. Now the big heavy brass. Some choir. Some pizzicato. Little band in the box, electric piano. And now we go back to our strings. And we add a little speed in there. And that's that. So how can we do this and start this off in a completely different way now? I'll demonstrate that with a whole new starting point. So that'll be a brand new set of initial chord progression. And then we'll kick it off and see how every layer is put together. All right, so now we're going to delete everything and start over in a whole different direction. So Scalar, I started from scratch now. I'm going to take all the data we used in the last demo and delete it all and start fresh and go in a different direction. At this point, we could create our own chords from playing the piano and actually come up with the original chords. But again, we could just go into Scalar, and last time we used Ode to Hands. This time we could use something else that will be maybe epic, or we could go soundtrack, suspense, triumph maybe, something grandiose, because we got a lot of big instruments here. But, you know, you don't have to go big orchestra. You could go jazzy and end up using a lot more band-in-a-box tracks. If a person would go in a jazz style, then, you know, having it set up with band-in-a-box, you could pull in some beautiful brush drums and basses and guitars and stuff, you know, jazz guitar. But that might be for another video. But since we have all our instruments set up nicely for a big orchestra, let's keep up that sound, and let's go again cinematic, but this time let's go to soundtrack. I haven't tried this one, but I'm assuming it will be it will work because the system I've tested works pretty good. So just grab the chords down. Now these chords, some of them might be complex. We're going to have to fix it up, and we want the complex version, and we want the triad bass version. So let's drag that out. So we lasso all these, drag them out into our MIDI track, which I have tracks set up for chords, the triad version of the chords, the melody, and the rhythms. You could come up with 10 other ideas here, but so these are our root chords. And I'll just move this temporarily out of the way. And let's look at what we have here. We have some triads to start with, and sonokinetic, and the chord track will have no problem using these chords. things might get a little more interesting with these complex chords. So we're going to use both. Now we're going to write up, we're going to change this and come up with the triad version. So we already have the complex chords here ready to go. And now we're going to go back into, I found as I've done more and more testing that coming up with the triad version, there's a way that Scalar can help you do that really quickly. So to do that, simply, since we have our chords down here, right-click on them, edit chord, and we know that the first 4 chords were just triads, and we can see it here. There's just 3 chords, so no problem there. And I believe this one is still good, yeah. But let's check this one out. Now, we just want the E minor. So in this case, we can get rid of this, and we can get rid of that. And now we have a 3-chord E minor. Let's go and change the next one, and it's a C major. So let's keep the C, and let's get rid of this and this. Next one, edit. It's a D sus4, which it's going to be a problem with Sonokinetic. So we can either try to change it here. So I think what we'll go with is a D for the simplified version, and we might have to adjust that later for Sonokinetic. But so let's go with the D. And let's see what we got there. That might work for now. I don't know if we go with a D major. Go with a D minor. I think we'll go with the D major. Sometimes you have to make a call, but when you're putting this together. But I know that Sonokinetic will have no problem with the D major. But as far as the complex version, I might have to change things around while I'm putting this together. But let's quickly just finish this. So we have a D major, and then looks like we're going to have another D major. And that's all right. We'll just keep that for now. But these two will have to, I don't want to have 2 chords the same, but who knows, maybe that'll work. So that's good for now. So we can go back into the main. We've adjusted our chords. These should all be triads now. We can lasso these and bring it into our chord triad track and take a look. Move this out of the way for now. And now these should work in Sonokinetic, but they'll need to be taken down a couple octaves. So for Sonokinetic, we need everything from C1 to just under C3. So let's take it up 1 octave. So I brought it down 1 extra octave. So just have to put it in the Sonokinetic range, and that's good right now. So now we have our chords, and we can also, from our triads, so if we click on our triads, go up here, project, chord track, assign or create chord symbols, and just click yes. And now we have all our chord symbols. And since the last chord is another D major, but we are most likely going to change that, so I'll just put a placeholder there for now. And we're pretty much set up with our initial chords, which were complex, then our simplified triads, and we got our chord track made. And next, we're going to start filling up all these tracks with exactly the data that each one of these instruments needs to sound good. All right, so one of the first things I want to do after getting the chords set up in the chord track is have a track just to listen to while we're creating all the data for the other tracks. And a good way and fast way to do that is with like a full pizzicato with the orchestra, or just some fast, short, full range, so it'll pick up all the notes. So something like that. So that's what I have set up here. So I'll take the complex chords here, and I will copy that to the orchestra picks or pizzicatos. And what that allows me to do is listen to the chords, and I can quickly change that to marcatos or sustains. So gives me an idea with short articulation and long articulation of what will sound good against this now as we start to build our tracks. All right, so that's going good now. So let's move that out of the way and start to build our first melody idea. And there could, we could, in the last idea, we had only one, detailed melody in this top line here, but you could make 10 if you wanted. So now we have our complex chords, and let's drag them back down here, because the other ones were dumbed down as triads. Now we drag down the original ones down here, complex chords, into our performance section. And now we just turn on perform. I like to turn on humanize velocity because that makes the velocities stagger a bit and makes strings really liven up. So now we can literally go through any something that we might like as a phrase or a performance. So I'm not going to spend time here, but generally, I mean, you can find something that works really quick. So let's just grab something here and test it. And the whole point here is not going through and perfecting it. It's just how you throw this together and then get your idea, and then you can take it to the next level where you perfect everything. You go into detail. You do the chord leading, the voice leading, all the fancy tricks and changing up the rhythms and not just keeping everything in blocks, but really adding finesse and adding, panning and all the other things. So, but as far as just this system working to get you up and running, this is a really, I find it's a good way to do it. All right, so we have the performance, and it sounds half decent. So now that performance is baked into these chords down here just by turning that button on. So now we can just lasso these based on our complex chords, drag it up here, and right to the VSL track. And right now the VSL track, and we'll move Scalar right now, can handle, because it's set up to the complete full range of strings ensemble there, so it can handle all these notes. So I'm sure if I play it now, and we're going to turn these off one by one, and I'll turn them back on as we start to populate these tracks. But so... And that's sounding good already, just as a first try. So now we have a nice kind of melody with the elite strings playing. And the detail you can get out of a library like the VSL is just unreal. Just slapping something together really quick is great, but you can get into, and I've said in my videos how you can tweak everything, the attack for every note, and I mean you can really get this to sing if you put some time into it. But it's great for just already getting a nice sound, and all the notes are playing, and that's all we need for now. So I'm going back to shorts, agile, violins 1. That'll be good for now. And let's keep moving here. And for the next track, we'll generate a rhythm. And that can be for our percussion, or that can be for choirs. It'll work good for choirs or multiple other ideas, but let's just generate a rhythm next. So let's grab a rhythm. We got performance turned on. We can go down to rhythms and just pick anything that, let's take one and go with it. We can leave it at 2 times or 1 time. Let's start with maybe 1 time. And since our chords are already here loaded in, all we need to do is play to demo. Liking this already at one time. I'm going to grab that and throw that into the rhythm track. And that could be maybe the choir, but we can copy and paste that. But that might be a little too fast for the choir, but if we have them set on staccato, and just tune it to staccato, let's just give a listen. Yeah, way too busy for the choir. But that might be good for a percussion or... So what I'm going to do when I have something that I think might be useful for something else down the line, just pull it, drag it to the side there, and you could have 100 different versions over here. But what we need is something slower for something like choir, a rhythmic chant, staccato choir. So we can turn this down to half. So we can try it at half, but it still may be too busy. Let's try that, since I like the basic. Let's grab the chords again and drag that idea in. And what we can simply do, since we generally like it, we can just take this and thin it out a little bit. Again, not going to spend a lot of time on this, but just to show how you can just keep moving and creating ideas here. We can take out some of these that are possibly a little bit too busy. And just go with maybe something like that. All right, let's go back. And by itself, it's not the greatest thing, but you start adding different parts. Actually, that isn't working for me either. Let's try the simplified chords. So I'm going to take that. And we're going to chop that up a bit. Just give it a little bit of rhythm, but we're going to maintain the chords, and I'll know if this is going to work pretty quick. Let's see if we can do it this way all at once. Okay, let's just play that from the beginning. All right, and another thing I forgot to do, why it's not sounding all that great right now, let's take this and let's take half of this down for the lower and half for the high. All right, so let's continue to add a little bit of just some movement in there. And the last note there. Okay. Now, let's try that. We get the bass in there though. Good enough for what we need. Just a little bit of rhythm back in there. All right, next part we're going to add our first sonokinetic track. So we're going to just make sure it's playing in the correct zone for sonokinetic. Okay, for sonokinetic strings, we need it to play in the blue zone here. And here's a good tip. For all your sonokinetic library tracks, and I have quite a few in here now, this is a great tip. All you want to do is, you don't want to use all these fancy key switches. Don't worry about these at all. Don't need them for what we do. You just want to make sure that only any note, and you can grab and try all kinds of stuff, you just want this blue part to be active. And a way to filter everything else out is just go to a sonokinetic track, go to Midi Modifiers, click on over here under range, set to note filter, and we want to filter out everything from B2 to C1. So just set it up from B2 to C1, and most of the sonic kinetic libraries are all in the same range. So just keep that handy, no B2 to C1, and do that to all your sonokinetic tracks. And as you save your project, you'll never have to worry about stray notes hitting and triggering any of these unwanted keystrokes here. So that's really a great tip, because you'll get a lot of frustration when you have certain notes triggering and always changing your settings here as you're trying to try things out. This setup is all built for just throwing MIDI data around and not having to worry about key switches anywhere and just flying through ideas. So that's one way you can do it with this note filter. Very fast to do. All right, so now only these notes will be triggered, and we want to start with our triad set of chords. And so we can copy that to our capriccio strings. And now we can take a look at these notes and just make sure they're going to be where we want them to be. And we know that they have to be between C1 and C2, and I think they're already set up there. So there's C1, C2, or anywhere between here and here. And so they're fitting, no notes are gone out of that region, so these should all play as long as they're playable notes by the sonokinetic engine. And let's try it. Let's turn off so we can hear this clearly, and turn on capriccio strings. And another way to just keep everything under control is we can mute everything but say the mid strings. And we can see, indeed, our notes are falling within the blue. Everything's good. Nothing else is being triggered. And it seems to be playing every chord. Oh, there's one chord needs to be fixed. So their third chord, because that's sustain or sus. Okay, and capriccio can't play sus chords, so that D sus chord has to be changed. Just for capriccio, the others might work depending on the library. But so let's take that and change it, or you don't have to have all the strings playing all the time. Sometimes you might want that effect of no strings for that, so it's kind of a hold on the strings there. But I'd much rather like to have all options open. So let's take a look at that. And here we can see that's our D sus. And we need to change it. And here's the good thing about having a chord track. Since we have our chord track set up, generally, and let's go out again and make sure we have, this is when knowing what your scale is. So it's E minor. This chord progression, Scalar's saying it's in the E minor scale. So now what I'm going to do is turn on scales, and I'm going to set that up. So reason, I've always got trouble. It kind of sticks there, but now I should be able to, okay, there. So now we know that Scalar wants it in E minor scale just to keep us moving here quickly, not having to worry about what we're doing. And we can go, so E minor, we'll go melodic minor. So now, move that out of the way and go back. And we know that this D sus is causing issues. We need it to be a more simple chord. But now since we have our scale set up with our chord track, we can just mess around and maybe just go with something that's going to be in the scale. It may not sound perfect, but it gives you ability to start messing around and changing things. So we might try that. Start at the beginning. So that's not working. Might try that. And that's not a chord that's recognized because that's an augmented chord. So what we want to do is keep this and keep testing. This should play. G. All right. Yeah, that's working for now anyway. So let's go back out of there. And now the good thing is now that this chord, these simple triads, should play with every sonokinetic library now. And that D sus might have played with indie and noir. I'm not sure if they can. I think they can play augmented and sus chords. I'm not sure on that. But anyway, so since we did it once and we got it working, we can copy this and now paste it to all our sonokinetic stuff. And we'll be flying from here on. And we'll just leave these chords in for our percussion, but that's where you might want to use something more rhythmic, right? And there's all kinds of ideas you could use in there. But just for the sake of speed, now we're going to start adding things rather quickly. So we've got our capriccio strings going. They're set up for just a basic idea right now. So let's just bring those in, and let's bring in what's next, the ostinato strings, and they should play automatically. And I'll bring that in. So we can turn on the bass, so we'll finally get a bass, a little bit of movement on the bass, and the first inversion, voice for that. And let's go back to the beginning and turn that on. And see how fast that is once you get the system worked out. And now we're set up for pretty much everything except Band in a Box, which I'm going to show next. All right, so what we're doing now is just putting in all the chord changes. We have 8 bars, so you just click on the chord area here. And the next one will be chord 5, so that's E minor. And after that, we've got a C, and then we've got a D, and then we've got undetermined, but I think it was a D sus, and since Band in a Box can utilize every chord that I know of, we can put in a D sus, so just like with third chord. So now we're set up in Band in a Box, and we can clear out the last one there, so we can clear that out. And at any time now, we can generate something that might sound good with what we're doing. Even though Band in a Box isn't really set up for orchestral type of sounds, they do have some horns, some trumpets, saxophone, choirs, but for the most part, it's not orchestral based, but I hope they keep pushing that. I hope they expand on that in the future. But there are a lot of things you could add, like some piano. We could add some piano to this. a lot of tracks we could add, but we're all set up, and I've gone over this a few times in a few videos. You just select a real track, it'll open up, show you all your real tracks available, pick something in the right signature, time signature, and tempo, and today that's 4/4 and 110, and it will generate with the chord changes at the right bar. So you'll be all synced up, and it's just a matter of finding the right type of instrument to go with that. But I plan on some videos that really, instead of using orchestral, we're going to be using multiple tracks of Band in a Box because it works so well that way. So that'll be in a future video coming up. But for today, that's how you would do it, though, if you wanted to add some Band in a Box. Just put in the chords, which are right there, just boom, boom, and you're done. So, but right now, we will put that away for now. And we've got our choir. One other thing we might want to do is copy a complex original chords, and we can copy that to something like the orchestra, and we can use a really nice animated orchestra, and we could put something like maybe something to match the original chords. So let's see, what did we originally pick? It was suspense, no, soundtrack. So anything soundtracky type of thing, just to keep us moving quick. So mysterious, dramatic, maybe something peaceful to start, and then we can build up all these tracks here. So let's go with maybe peaceful to start with. So let's try that, and let's go to the mixer. And of course you can mix and turn on and off all different types of layers in this one idea. So let's try that as a beginning. And we really don't need the motion. We're going to get the motion from the ostinatos and the phrases. So we may go with something. There we go. Just giving us a bed to start with. And this sounds pretty good. We may even get rid of the bass. What do we got here? The harmonics, I might turn that off, so that's a little annoying. And we don't need the real low stuff. Well, maybe we'll try something else. That might be a nice place to start. Something totally different. We don't need the staccatos in there, maybe. We'll just start with the piano. All right, so that's just like last time. We started with kind of a paddy type thing. This time we're going to start with the piano. And then we're just going to run through all these different instruments, and we're going to press buttons and see what we come up with. So this is where the fun starts, and let's kick it off again with the piano. And I do have pizzicato available. We can just get some pizzicato going. And then bringing in the melody. We could do it now or later, but now where are these strings here? These are getting a little more interesting. Bring in some bass strings. Can add this nice detail, or we could completely change it up from last time by just, if you press the O, it changes all selections everywhere. But let's see what happens with this. sometimes you have to kick it in by hitting the P, which brings the samples in and back. Kicks them in. So many different directions. This is really the best part of this, is where now literally you have all your data set up where you can now go through hundreds of different ideas so quick. So we may say to ourselves that we want something a little wispy, maybe not so dramatic and strong at the beginning. So we'll thin out the middle strings to keep things light for now, but I'm liking the bass for now. And now our strong ostinato possibilities coming in. We don't need that double bass there. I think we're going to just use maybe the mid strings and the high string. But we have all these options available. Maybe that's too many strings already, so. In fact, let's just back off of that for now. Let's try out the Woodwinds. We may want this time to go with some ostinato woodwinds. There's some graphical errors here, but let's turn on the ostinato woodwinds. And if you want to get rid of the graphical errors, sometimes just close it. And when you have a lot of things going on, yeah, just go back, hit your hotkey to reopen it, and it'll clear it up. Now we're turning on more ostinato woodwinds, more layers. And now we could go with any other phrase detail with the woodwinds now. And we'll mute these to start and then bring them in. Those are the woodwinds or capriccio. That's the original detail from our last demo. We can go in a different direction. Kick in the new samples. Turn off a few tracks just to clear things up. Get a different look at it. And again, if you hit the O, it changes everything at once. Boom, all new samples. You may have to kick in the samples again. That's kind of nice. And now let's look at the ostinato brass. And we can turn that on. That's kind of nice, bringing in those big horns. Some movement on them. Time to bring in percussion. that may be way too busy, but now we could go in and with the original brass, what we used last time, let's change it up. For the big brass, the phrases, we're going to hit the O, change up everything, and just hear the big brass with maybe a little bit of strings. Oops, okay. Let's just test out a bunch of brass ideas. And let's turn off the choir. And let's change the woodwinds around. Hit the O. Turn them back on. So that gives you an idea of using a system like this. It can quite quickly get too busy, but the idea is just to bounce ideas back and forth really quick, and you may find a combination of woodwinds and brass or a little bit of percussion with the brass that you really like. Then you can just start to mute other tracks and then open up the data. Once you figure out the idea you want to go with, just look at the data, open it up, and start to really, do some work there by, do some, change the rhythm up. There's so many different ways you could make these chords work better by doing some voice leading into one chord from the other. The idea is that you use this system to just quickly throw things together. And then once you get a beginning idea and you say, hey, that sounds cool, get into the data and then start to really change up and make these chords fit nicely together and make them more interesting. And then from there, I would go to the melody idea, and I would do the same thing. I would open up the melody and start to really make it something special, And since you know the scale you're in, you know the keys you're working with, so, you can take it many steps up from just where we threw it together here. Hope you enjoyed this video. Sure hope you had a chance to create music wherever you're at in the world today. Hope to see you on the next video.